reminded me of a couple of things. The clinic, and then there he is up on the stage. It was Mike Krzyzewski. And I said to Don when we walked away, I said, who is that guy? He's amazing. And he just kept asking me. I was 24 years old, asking me questions. He was asking Don questions. And then, 10 years ago, we got to play in Arizona. And when the game was over, the White Baby Night was the greatest experience for 16,000 people there. Coach Olsen said, well, I want to go to dinner with you. I went, okay, go to dinner with you, don't you pay, you know. So I got there, he was already there with assistants, and proceeded to ask me question after question after question. And I'm thinking, why is he asking me? And then I realized, well, that's why he is who he is. Because it's not the answers. It's not really, because none of us have all the answers. But if you know the right questions to ask, you're going to get the answers that you need. And Mike last night, just talking to the people at the bed and breakfast that were watching, and the information he was taking in, and later on was right back that he knew everything about the people at the bed and breakfast, and it was amazing. Because I have the attention span of a 2-year-old, all right, and I'm watching him do this, and that's why he is considered one of the best minds in basketball today. You know, the two guys I mentioned were pretty good coaches, Krzyzewski and Olsen. But last night I got it. I remember one time talking about it. We played Mike right here years ago. He had a great team. And I was so scared because he beat San Francisco State by like 40 2 nights early. And the game was won right here. Right here. The inbounded the ball, his Australian stepped in, did the three, and the game was over. And that was what, 10 years ago? 12 years ago? I still remember. And I didn't get a chance to talk to him. And then Bobby Williams is the head coach at Santa Barbara. I ran into Bobby and I said, man, what is it with Dunlap? I said, and I hear so many things about it. I say, Pat, all I can tell you is that we're all playing checkers and he's playing chess. And then I got to know Mike, and I really, really got to appreciate him and really respect him as not only a coach, but as a human being. And I'm so proud that he's here and he's taking the time to come up and talk to you guys as I am the other two gentlemen that will be speaking here later on. So without any further ado, let's go.
should reinforce what you do. There are probably 2 or 3 different paths about going about whatever you do that's indigenous to your personality. I find it interesting in this day and age, for example, that people will ask you to keep evolving and changing as a coach, but on the other end, they'll say, be who you are. And so if you are who you are, and you present that, especially in this day and age, sometimes the truth or honesty can lead you in trouble. And so my point is that there's so many things that are confusing or contradictory to, you know, who am I and what am I supposed to do as a coach? And now I can go down the road of whatever statements I made. And you said, I came here to learn about something out of the toolbox and help you with my drills on how an individual and how you get players to improve. And yet you told stories. And so who I am is that I know I have probably 7 clicks in my career and I'm done. And I know where those clicks are. I'm on the backside of everything. And it gives me great leverage to have this moment with the players, number one, coaches, and impart concisely whatever will help you that's on top of who you are. I would never ask anybody to be me. I would never ask anybody to, well, if you're not doing this, well, certainly you've got to be foolish, because doesn't everybody do this? That's just such a bad delivery and bad content. So just specifically on the topic of player development, there are a million videos out on ball handling, passing, shooting. There aren't a million videos out on defense, on how you make a player. Individually, when he walks into the gym, the bait on the hook is always, let's shoot, let's dribble, let's pass, and do all these other things. I understand that. But I hear from my generation, and I hear parroted back to the players, that defense is all about effort, and offense is about a multitude of things that have to do with skills and development. And I always thought that that was a very Neanderthal kind of perspective when you look at defense. And my point is you have to be incredibly smart to play great defense. And you have to have a toolbox of skills, whether it's your hands, your feet, or intellectually to understand, am I 1 pass away, 2 passes away, did my brother trap? And that's going to immediately change my position. We have 2 interceptors, and we'll always have a goalie no matter where you trap. And are you going to liberate your players when they trap so that the 2 gamblers or interceptors can actually do their job and take a chance, and when they steal the ball, you're happy, and when they overlunge and you got back doors, you're critical. And so really that player can't truly move with freedom and let his instincts go because you want it all. And so individual development has to do with decision making and judgment. And then the development of the skills, that's easy. The hard part of basketball in your development of your players is how they make decisions coming down the floor, how they make decisions when they catch it in the post. Or if you're a dribble drive guy, what do they do when they get into the gap? Do they know how to play on the ground as opposed to get into a gap and be in the air? And now you have to understand that when I leave my feet, the other 4 players leave their feet. Because you have less than 2 seconds. If you have a 44-inch vertical, in order to come back down, you have to make a decision and make a great pass. And to do that over and over is really difficult. And against great defensive teams, that's going to be a turnover. More times than not. So, you know, my point to you is that we can rush in and I can move bodies, and then you pull or extrapolate one thing from 15 things that we're said, and you collect that and you go away. But I don't know that I've impacted your thinking. And so I don't know that I can, but that's my challenge. And I see it as a very fun challenge. But I don't think about, you can write this down, I don't think about individual development as first a skill set that the player has. I'm constantly thinking about clarity of the skill that we're trying to develop so that it leads to a better decision. And then what's in the mind of the passer must be in the mind of the receiver. In other words, when we go 94 feet, we go 88 feet, the manager, the student body president, and the president of our institution either has a turnover or they don't. And what I'm trying to get our players to connect into is emotionally, is that you have a responsibility when you come down the floor not to turn the ball over and shoot a bad shot. And in order to get them to think as we, that takes a lot of time to connect them into judgment and decision making. Now I want to ask you this way. How much time are you spending with your players on how to make a really good decision? How much time, okay, let's go beat the crap out of our players, have a cathartic moment, and go 60 minutes with them and have a guy chin the ball in the post, look at his reads, hey, tap out as opposed to dribbling your pass, and I can get a guy to do that. That has absolutely nothing to do with decision making and judgment on individual development. Guard forward, work, and working with guys on ball handling. I mean, my God, there isn't anything you can't get on video or that I have to offer here that's of any value whatsoever. None whatsoever. And so, my point is that my approach on individual development is what I'm going to show you. I'm not going to preach to you, but this is how I will do it. And the only coach, I was, as a reference point, around Wooden, I watched Wooden coach. I was at his camp at Pepperdine. I have my little picture when I was 14 years old next to Coach Wooden. Pete Newell, the family took me in. 20 years of passing a ball at Pete Newell big man camp in one form or another and evolving to being one of these guys as coaches. The only thing that I'm saying is it took me 20 years to maybe figure out 3 points that the guy made because he was so smart. And my point is this, is I worked incredibly hard so that when I could work with the big, that I could say that, you know, Jamar did it this way, Elijah Vaughn did it this way, or Kevin Durant, or whomever, or Tim Gergovich said, this is the way to do it. And it's not argument. Tim Gergovich is in Milwaukee right now, and he's the #1 teacher in the United States of America. It's not close. I don't want to argue with anybody. It's not arguable. And anybody that's been around the man understands that he is a human whisperer, and when he goes in and he works with people, I just, as a 21-year-old, driving over to UNLV when they were doing their 8 weeks of 8 teams, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I just sat at his feet, passed balls. When I wasn't in the offensive gym as a clinician, then I just did whatever he asked me to do for 8 weekends in a row. And I did that for 5 years in a row. And my point of referencing that is to pay homage to coach, not me. I should have been doing that, but what I was dumbfounded by was nobody else was doing it. We lived in Southern California where you could literally drive your car 4.5 hours and be in that gym. And you had the best of the best. And I don't know, we had a clinic last weekend in our school with Calipari, Buzz Williams, Hanzo Martin. It was a who's who right in our gym. We had 132 people show up for that clinic. You have to be kidding me. But not really. So, any information that I put forward today on individual development or organizing your program in a way philosophically that you want to, so you have trademarks and you stand for something, I understand that maybe 1 of 10 would think of anything that I say as any value at all. And I'm not saying that as a put down. I just understand that when we recruited LMU, we'll lose 9 guys to get 1. Right now, that's our odds, and we have to accept it. So my angle of comment is not, where are all the other people? And so, for 2 days, as a host of that clinic, with the power of 90 in our gym, and these guys flying in on their little jets, and come in and do their 2-hour talk and get on their jets and go back to their programs. My point was, and to you, is very simple. You're on a journey, and then there's going to be a day where they put a ribbon on your career. I'm very close to that bow being put on the end of my career. And I did the California Coaching Academy in Northern California, Wine Cellar. I was working with 400 coaches per year. For 9 years straight, I did that. 9 times 400. And that was a mathematical mean. I'm a numbers guy. So my point is that I do this, and your story is important. But every one of you is going to get hit with friendly fire. It's going to happen. You're going to be hurt by a principal, a superintendent, an athletic director, a parent of one of your players, and it's incoming and you'll never see it coming. You think you will, but you won't. I've seen guys stay in their chair and stay in one program for a lifetime. I've seen guys hopscotch like me and move around, and I've seen the in-between. And this is all about individual development. I have not lost my place. But your job, where you sit, is not to be bitter about whatever comes your way. You have to find this guy. You have to be that guy who preaches to their players about being tough and then take your own medicine when you get hit. And yet, I will be around coaches that are bitter, that are railing against parents, that are railing against AAU, are just really crummy with how the game's going. I'm not. You know why? Because I'm really proud of the guys that are sitting in the bleachers right now. You need that voice. You're the ones. I could care less about one more person being in the bleachers. Doesn't matter to me at all. I care about our kids, and I care about you, and I care about players. And that's all I care about. There's always going to be negativity. There's always going to be a story of injustice. And that's where your mental toughness comes in. And so, my point to you is that you, and Eddie Sutton said this, and it was had to do with Moncrief. He coached Moncrief at Arkansas. And I was at a clinic, and he said something that was indelible. And what he said was this, is for 3 years he fought with Moncrief. And Moncrief was basically an a-hole, hard to deal with. And then Moncrief had an emotional setback with his own family, and he needed Eddie Sutton. They always do. But there's this window, and he closed the door, and Moncrief sat down and teared up and did his thing and shed his tears. And Sutton, who had Johnny Cash's voice, said, "What happened?" And Moncrief essentially said, "I don't know what you're talking about, Coach." And he said, "When are you going to raise the white flag and let me coach you?" You see, to do individual development, you have to have some sort of a base of trust. And you have to do things that are more important than chinning the ball in the post in order for that guy to truly let you work with him. I have no emotional attachment to these young men. And now I'm going to ask them to go through some things so you can get your appetite sated on a thing, and I can care less about a thing. I care about the individual development, the permission of the player to allow me to teach him that that's his right. I have no right to do that. I don't expect for them to say, Coach, you just said what you said, and I'm going to do it right away, especially their generation. I have a son that's their generation. I have sons that are their generation. I have a daughter that's their generation. I get it. All right? But I embellish the change in them. I'm not fighting players because they're different than my generation. I try to highlight what they do well and forget about what they don't. And if I can move them to some things that take a weakness to a strength, I'm happy about it. And I'm on individual development. But see, I'm going to talk to you with my heart. I'm not talking off a script. I'm prepared as anybody here, and I spend all my time in the gym working with players. I recruit, and I go back to the gym. That's what I do. I don't own a car. I don't own a home. I can put my life in a bag and move right up here and set my life up that way. That's me. But my point is, if I love players, then I should be in the gym with them, or I should be in the study table, or I should have a meal with them, or I should see them late at night and text with them and email with them, so they understand that I care more than just if they can chin a basketball. That's individual development. And all of what was behind that was about 14 minutes of the diatribe to get you to understand, for me, that I'm moving down the back street so that I can get permission to do individual development for the player. And my question to you is this: are you willing to risk what you've always done with your players on individual development to not do that? Because at your age and where you're at in your careers, you've got to be willing to break something in half that you were taught by, say, Pete Newell or John Wood. Let me give you an example. And I mean, Coach Wooden's stuff speaks for itself, and I'll leave it there. But I couldn't disagree with Wooden more on this point if he were sitting right there. And I can show you the hypocrisy of the teacher. He would have said, if he were doing a clinic, that no player is allowed to criticize another player. But yet, if you read his life story, there was a time where he was out in the barn, and he got tangled up and cursed at his older brother, and he tells the story. And they got tangled up physically. And then the father comes in, Wooden's father comes in, and then Wooden, I'm not going to put his words in his mouth, obviously now or even then. But my point is that the greatest form of individual development is when a player teaches another player and the coach is not around. That's when you know you have a culture. And I tell our players, we finished up, we started at 5 a.m. yesterday, and we went for 3 hours. The day before, it was the Baton Death March. We have fit bands on our players, and they were at 5.5 miles in a 2-hour workout. It was on the hop, very little talking, and that's anaerobic running. 5.5. The mathematical mean of what we do when we go on that floor is predicated by the lack of my communication with them in an excessive way so we can replicate the game. And going into our first practice, we had one young man, whether it was 60 minutes or 90 minutes, that was averaging 4.2 miles of practice, or a session, or whatever it is. I call that kid a runner. And then our other wing, I would show him what he was doing versus what he was doing, individual development. obligation to go over to the other player and within reason get him to do what you're doing. To come late at night to the gym, because it's not good enough to have two go to the gym late at night. You need guys pulling other guys into that gym. So not only am I touching on cultural development and standing for whatever you stand for, but peer pressure as a form of motivation and teaching is way more powerful than any coach will ever be. Individual development is when player teaches player. That's big time. And when I was at UNLV watching Tark's best teams, I could not believe how the older guys took care of the younger guys. They had something that was called the it factor. You couldn't explain it, but when you watched it with your eyes, you said, I've never seen that before. And that's the same thing that I'm saying to you. When Tim Gergovich was at his prime physically, nobody on the face of the earth did an individual like Tim Gergovich. You may not know this. I know this for a fact. Underneath the standard were 3 t-shirts. And he would go through one t-shirt and he was soft or wet and he'd take the t-shirt off and he'd throw a dry one on. And it was a 3 t-shirt or 4 t-shirt session. Tim Gergovich, every rep. Every rep. And when there were clinics at UNLV and a guy came from New York or Oklahoma or Texas, they would always say, who is that man? And why are these kids who are supposed to be misfits supposed to be doing what they're doing for that man? Because they knew he loved them. He suffered with them. He made sure they went to class. I rode in the truck when Stacy Ogden had to go to class, and I know who was delivering him to class. I know how that job got done. And I know right now Stacy Ogden is an assistant at UNLV who has his degree and will be a head coach. Is an incredible human being. I've worked with Stacy. I've known Stacy since he was 18. But the guy who was directly linked to what Stacy is today professionally was Tim Gergovich. So my point on individual development is more of an emotional point. Taking the time to be with your players, to get them invested in whatever you're articulating so that they can do it in a way where they truly understand what you're asking of them. And I think individual development, first and foremost, is about decision making and judgment. It has nothing to do with skills. Do you need skills? Yeah. But the game is played in 2s and 3s offensively. On one side of the floor, you're going to have 2 guys. On the opposite side, you'll have 3. You say, hey, I don't like that. And I want 3 on the ball side. And we're going to play out of the triangle on that pick and roll or whatever UCLA cut. That's basketball. And every now and then you'll get an isolation. But isolation doesn't win championships. And that's been proven over and over again. All you have to do is look at Kobe's career or a guy who won 5 like Dean Smith. How many did he lose because of his behavior on isolation? There's a balance. And he was either in balance or out of balance, and the triangle harnessed Kobe. It restricted him, made him let go of the ball. Same as Jordan. Same as Jordan. There were counters in it, but the greatest magic in the triangle offense is that when the ball's here, you have other players, and it was predictable when you're supposed to pass the ball. In isolation, you don't know when the hell the guy's going to pass it, if ever. And now it becomes a me game, not a we game. So that's another, I kind of go to the left there, but it's a matter of studying the game and looking through your eyes instead of ours. Okay, I've said a lot, but maybe not. This is a check-in point. I'm going to stop now and fire away. I know I've got Brian Katz coming in behind. behind me, and I know the clock's ticking, but I also know I'm incredibly slow teaching. And I will move the bodies for you, so you're sated, and you say, hey, you did a thing on individual development, you never showed me a thing. Sorry, I didn't show you a thing. You can figure that out. All right, this is a good time for me to stop, and you may have a question on individual development. Fire away.
When you bring in a new athlete into your program, and you don't yet have that personal, I mean, I guess with some of the recruiting, you've developed some of that personal relationship. How do you start to develop those relationships so that you can now start to impress your teacher?
Well, one of the things that's really amazing to me, and it's, you know, people will conquer away. Me receiving your question, I'm just, well, that's a great question. You know, you're being pimped. No, all that. I'm just saying that it's a pointed question, and I think it's a good question. Only according to if I give you what you need on an answer back, and I'll check in with you afterwards to see if I'm close to what you're asking. When you're trying to develop a relationship so I can get these guys to go as hard as I want them to go, I want them to go hard with thought, not hard because if I want them to go hard, I'll go get a mule and I'll run them up and down Grand Canyon. We do it all the time. I don't want that. I want a cerebral, let's say, a smart, thinking player all the time. I don't want a robot. All right, coach, it's got to be a cross-training of things that you do that ultimately there's a back and forth, an earned kind of relationship. One of them is when our guys come in, we go camping. They're still doing it. I left the program at Metro State about 20 years ago. I was, you know, beginning to men, and now this day, they're still hiking 14ers with the same faculty that would take us up on mountaintops. We usually start at 4:30 in the morning. It was a 2.5-day thing what we did, where we took kids out of Oakland, or we'd take kids out of Australia. We'd take our team up to the top of the mountain and then bring them down. It was about a 16-hour deal, all told, on that day. And it was a 2.5-day adventure. And so my point is that if you decided to go out on your football field and spend 3 hours and say you had some competitions that have nothing to do with basketball, but you have food involved, and then also is you had one question where a kid revealed something about him, even if it was uncomfortable, that our job every time with our players is to get them to reveal something about themselves as simple as the color socks they like to wear. It doesn't have to be something deep or intrusive. But I want to know more about you when I leave here than when I got here. It's like with Pat. I know more about him through Molly, as she brought some things that helped me understand Pat better. All right? And then Pat brought some stuff that, you know, in terms of Pat Sandel last night, that helped me. So when I'm with Pat, Coach Sandel, I can be better. So my point is, number one is do something immediately that is just you and the kids, that has nothing to do with basketball. That's imperative. Second is, gentlemen, make out a one-page questionnaire of 4 questions that you know for a fact you don't know about your players. A database is what I call it is. I'll give you an example. I was married 13 years to my wife, and I'm just so smart, and I'm making fun of myself. I gave them the questionnaire that I would give my players, and my wife answered it, and I said, I'm going to swap with you, and then we'll give each other the answers and see if we got 100%. We're married 13 years. My God, man. We ought to be 100% on that? Half. So my point is, get a questionnaire and say, hey, most tragic thing that happened in your life. Second question, top 5 priorities in your life. If a kid doesn't put basketball, you're in deep doo-doo. God dang. I tell our guys, do not. I mean, you know, I get the 3, you know, family, faith, you know, all that. And I'm just going, okay, fine. Wrap that into one answer, brother. but that basketball better appear, or you get trouble. So my thing is, how much do we really know about our players? And then within a half hour, you get it back, and that night you're reading, and you go, oh, I learned this about that guy. So having a questionnaire immediately when you answer something or meet somebody, and then do it again, because you say, well, I already got that on Mike Brown. And then the next year, he answers one of the questions different. Maybe he's evolving. Maybe he remembered. Maybe he trusts you more. So I think a questionnaire is a really important thing. I think an activity that's team-related, that is a get-to-know-you activity, is really, really important. Go bowling with them. And then have a hamburger thing, just something cheap, you know, where you're having a barbecue. And then you have in Australia, when you talk, they'll always have somebody post-speech stand up and stand right next to you and tell you what you said. Here's what I got from what you just said. And he tells the group, I had never seen that tradition before. So my point is that get the questionnaire, get the activity. All right? Third thing is, when you really want to know somebody for what they are, it's by what they do, not what they say. You have to put them under pressure. So early in the piece, I want to see what a guy is like under the hammer. And when he's tired, when you tell him something he doesn't want to hear. So I'll purposely criticize somebody while they're under pressure to see what their mechanism of response is. We have a guy from Chaffee Junior College, first team All-State. And if he doesn't have a trainer or a roller, or if he's not doing this, you know, or he has boo-boos, you know, and you know, it's always theater in the round. And I said to Autumn, when are you going to stop doing that stuff? I said, this guy just snapped his nose, he's got blood everywhere, he's got 2 pieces of towel run up his sinuses, and he's still practicing. I said, we would have had you in the emergency ward, ICU for 10 days. So my point is that put them under pressure, like they do in the military, and you get a response, and don't blame them, because that's what you have. And conversely speaking, you'll probably have somebody who responds totally different, and then you can model and say it's really important that we look at these 3 guys because they have a different mechanism for dealing with pressure. And your job isn't to criticize his response as much as it is to move him over the line. Yesterday, we had a fierce practice, and it was a teaching practice, and it was heavy. You know, it was a hard practice in terms of mental. And Autumn did some great things during certain sections of the practice, and I made sure that I highlighted it, but I didn't over-hyperbolize it. You know, and that's a redundant, but I mean, I didn't want to give him ice cream when he should be acting the way he normally acts. But I said, hey, that's the kind of behavior I expect on him. Can we do that in 5 minutes from now? I got you, coach. Boom. So I think the third part is that you have to be somewhat critical and then put them under time constraints. Like, let me give you an example. Individual development. And I would write this down. I think this is significant. I'm going to shoot the ball here, and I've got 30 seconds. And that's worth the point. And anything that's missed, I have to put back in. If I make it, I can put it off the backboard, and I get 2 points. Make here, there. And I see what my personal record is in 30 seconds. So that's indigenous to me. That's individual development under duress, because there's time to score, right? So then you'll get a kid who says he'll get 12 points and that's his personal record, and he'll never try to get 13. That's called competitive spirit. Some people call it testimonies. My point to you is I want him to strive to get 13. And then I want him to think about the best of all time. Well, we had a guy named Mike Brown who had 17. And you'll have a kid walk in, you know, and he'll say, oh, I'll get that. You know, and I know for a fact he has no shot of getting that. You know what I'm saying? And yet, he'll come in, and that's the guy who's on the front lines. Because they always put the puppies on the front line and the generals in the back, because you know the rest of the story. And young is dumb, and young will do some naive things. And my point is that the third point is put them under the hammer, time and score, and get your measurement. And then individual development, I might make 1 point to them on how we can get to 13 versus 12. And I'll say to them, the ball can't ever hit the deck. When Mike Brown got 17, he got every make out of there, out of the bottom of the net. And then he caught high and finished high. And pretty soon it hit but before, he was either letting it hit the ground or he was catching it here, and it was 1 less point. So that's individual development. And there's purpose to what we're doing. All right, now, I'm going to shift gears, so I have one single question. Everything takes me a long time. Everything. Give me 3 on 3, 3 blues and 3 whites. Quickly. Grab the ball. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, phrase prompt related to individual development. Give me a point, give me a wing, give me a pose. Alright, let's start here. Alright, now individual development. What I'm going to do is play them out of the hole. How much time do I have, folks, before I wrap up? What do I got? 30 minutes. I've got 30? Okay, great. Now, I've never forgotten this. Bobby Knight's Academy, and you think about this is a really, really important point that he was making. When you're doing your half court, whatever, start 3/4 court. So move to the white line, defense goes right good. Just as that guy right there, good initiate. Go ahead, play it up. All right, and the reason he said start at 3/4 court was it's more about how the game really is in transition than starting in half court. Second, the defender can actually turn the ball and have impact on the entry point when he pressures in here because it lifts the set, and that's not what they've been doing in practice. If you want to impact offense and stop people from doing what they want to do, then impact their sets. Change the spots where they catch the ball on. And that rearranges the wiring of the habit of whatever a coach did. My whole job defensively is to break the circuitry of what the coach has been doing hour after hour, practice session after practice session. We call it disruption in one form or another. So this lifts the set offensively. It makes this young man, in terms of timing, come down, and these guys have to wait for a up big, all right, wait on small or small on big, and he comes around and pop or whatever you guys are going to do. Okay. Second is that, Coach, you asked me that question about, my third point was put them under pressure. Watch what I'm going to do. They immediately puts them under pressure. Force your players to live off of bread and water. The dribble is a luxury. It's abused. I could go into a whole talk about how guys bounce the ball, but they don't know how to dribble the ball. But what this does is immediately it's going to tell me if guys know how to play. All right, you don't have to dribble. Guys, just play. If you get a steal, bring it back to this spot, no dribble, and then play it in the score. You have it all 4 for 1 on the start right here. Is that okay? All right, play. Here we go. Development to me is, and I have to figure things out to see what their strengths are because I'm not going to start with their weaknesses. All right, now go ahead and hold this up. The ball was here on over, and he was just going to catch the ball. All right, and here I'm going to white. Who's that? All right, show me how you were trying to get over. You shoved him with your forearm and tried to get straight. Not a problem. times you get one call, that's on me to coach. 9 times you get to stay in there 5, 6 seconds and never call it a second time. Never. And if he does, great. I like my back, but you have to post up in there. So go ahead and come on out here. Throw on the ball. Start back here. Ball's up top. The ball's going to go to the right. All right. Change this picture on individual development. Where should you be? Keep going. Now, step underneath the net. Now, do you realize you can see everything and nobody can see you? You're invisible. Nobody can see you, and now you can see him. Look at it. Look what you did just by sitting there as you dropped him down. And now he has a good crossover. He can take the nail. You can drop down to the corner, and now we give you the whole time because you're here. Now watch what happens. If I stand here, come on. You block in his way. You block the gap. All right, you stay. Here you go. Now how are you going to run the ball? Whoa, exactly. Now keep your hands up. Now what that's going to do is it's going to alert him and block him down. Now it's going to be easy for you instead of being visible with him. I don't want you to touch him, but I just want you to keep circling behind his back, and your whole job is to catch the ball in here. Okay, individual development is please tell the player what you want him to do. All right, and now I want to see what he does while he's down in there, and I want to see how he catches the ball on individual development. Play basketball, and if you get uncomfortable, just step out of the key, go quick with 1 foot tap, and go right back to the net. And don't come out of that paint unless you're tapped down and get back in. Just stay in there, and your job is don't touch him, but circle in front of him, circle behind him, but stay in the paint. And then if you feel like there's 3 seconds more, tap out, go right back in there, and stay in there the whole time. All right, let's play. Let's get in there. Okay, move. Get this right ball. Move on. Go, play. Just do it. Number 2 is rep it. Number 3 is go from whole to part. I'm going from whole. This is my whole, so I can go to a part. And I'm going to go to the part right here. So you say, what'd you just say to me? Do it. Have them play. This is out of the whole. Rep the crap out of it. And now I'll show you the individual development part of it. It's going to come. And this is how we do it. And I heard that Calipari did this with last year's team. Now, Calipari could be A, B, or C in your mind, but the only thing I ever cared about Patino's program at Louisville, you can talk about that right now. I don't care to even focus on those things. What I care about is, what does Coach do best? And then what does Bayheim do best? What does this guy do best? Because the rest of the talk, all right, was for another day, and it might be on another bullet point if you're into a committee meeting. But really, all I care about, I think we get hung up all the time, is we want to tear a person down. I have no interest in tearing anybody down. No, nobody. At this stage of my life, I just want to take from what they do best. So I heard that Calipari was having trouble with the twins. And it was a basketball trouble. It wasn't, drugs. It wasn't women. It was getting them to do what he wanted to do. So he did a very clever thing. When in practice he wasn't getting what he wanted, he would just go slow motion, 5-on-5, and he would say, okay, now do the ball, swing opposite, you cut here. And then he would have them go at a 3-speed, 5-on-5. And then as soon as he came out of the skip opposite, the third time he'd go live, and then they would play. So he was actually teaching and going with what on the circuitry. Oh, that's what you mean. Oh, that's what you mean. Oh, that's clear to me, as opposed to, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. He was just rewinding. So, all right, I'll show you what I mean on individual development. And we're doing this a lot. Last night, we have a kid from the Czech Republic. He's 6'10", 240. Really nice athlete, and a bunch of boosters and people last year said that guy's awful, I don't know why you recruited him. And so instead of fighting with them, I just said, well, let's give him a little bit of time, I think he's going to be fine. So yesterday, he went with a flyby, he jumped in there, he loves to be a point guard, jumped in the air, fired the thing out of bounds, and I said, okay, rewind it. Now Peter, drop your shoulder in, all right, cradle it, and jump into the gap and sit down. And we slid everybody to where they're being. We did it 3 times. I'm thinking of Calipari, not me. And then he goes, bip, bip, bip. And I said, within the next 2 minutes, that situation where you can penetrate right or left is going to come up again. So instead of telling him, don't ever penetrate, I said, show me that you learned something. And man, the big fella hopped through the gap and cradle. He reverse pivoted, fired it back to our 3-point shooter. Boom, down, celebration. And that's teaching, and that's individual development to me. Individual development. I know exactly why he missed the ball. All right, ball here. All right, okay. Put your hands like this. You have your palms facing the ground. Now, fingers to the ground, like the baseball player. And you have your hands like this. So now, see, you catch it, and if it rolls up on your hands, then you stick your body. And now, so the only adjustment we have is our get out and up. All right, don't give it. We went chop chop with the foot, and so the big 7-footer is going to throw it out of it. You got to cleanly bring your foot through. You go up off the ball of your foot. You don't get two shots. You understand? Release and go. All right, wait. Are you me or are you going to be you? Get up. All right, here we go. Get up. All right. Oh, now you can see you crack yourself. All right. Let's go. To me, that's development. That's the game. It's 3-on-3. It's pressure. Their bodies, and now you work on that instead of a shin ball. That's what I can do that. All right. Now change the set. So here. All right. There. Here. Stack your shoulders. You guys. All right. Now eventually, I'm going to have you on the perimeter, and you're going to find a way to do the perimeter. All right. Relax. But eventually stack sets to help him get catch. I want handbags. So wherever you go, you fake right, go left. Handbags here or here. You get the ball back because you look what we got on the perimeter here, brother. We're going to be in trouble. We got our ass on fire. Got it? All right. We're going to play. Play. Go. What he did was he threw the pass he wanted, but he couldn't have thrown the pass that he saw. Second thing is what's in the mind of the passer must be in the mind of the receiver. All right? So go over and shake your buddy's hand. Go over and tell him, thou shalt not lie in our programs. Do not lie on dead fronts. We never lie. Even if there's no we set up, we just don't do it. Why? Because if we turn that ball over more than our opponent, the math says we're going to lose. So what's in his mind, he knows you may even seal and quit, but that is a decoy, and you've got to see it, he's got to see it, because that pass is like a good-looking woman without a brain. She's going to kick your ass, she's going to take all your money, and she's going to leave your ass for dead. All right, let's go. He would teach them how to put their socks on, and he would teach them how to lace their shoes from tight bottom to where the low tops, high tops. And then you'll never have a kid lean over and retie his shoes if they double knot. And you'll see this in games. That's on the coach. That's not on the players. All right, so what my point is that we always double knot. Now I've got to wait for guys, and then a guy won't double knot. You've got a problem. You've got a problem. I'll guarantee you that kid's a problem if he doesn't double knot after you've taught him and he knows better. He's either mindless or he's doing this to the organization. It's one or the other. All right, now we're making out pass through. Cut it. And now jump stop. All right. So you show that being in a hurry doesn't work. So we work all that way. Well, exactly. So what's your job? Question as much as you want. Go ahead. Play. Another horseshit job. Oh! I have the answer, you don't. I have the answer, you don't. You want the answer? Why don't you try to do it? What's the hurry? You just proved that from 2 feet you can take a bad shot. That's all you proved. You gotta learn how to play slow and crowd. You're cracking yourself down. That's normal. I get it. How about maybe hitting you 3 times? See if you can get a hook out of this deal, or All right, make a bounce back, get in here, make a jump stop, and start kicking your ass off. All right, let's go. Put it back. Play it. Play it. All right, play it. Play it right here. Attack. Attack. Let's go. Play it. Play it. All right, do you eat with those hands? Because if you do, they're sharp. All right? So my thing is, on individual development, the whole problem is that you're so interested in ceiling that throw the ball. You have to work on that. Give me a better pass, will you, buddy? All right? Well, let go of your contact. Because you have to want it in there, but the position and the game settings to do that. So now, if we did, all you're going to do is pivot. He's going to come from a hand back. Now here we go. It might take us 9 passes. My question to you guys is, are you looking to pass the ball 9 times together in there? Sometimes you go one and score, but there's going to be some activity on the field. Those guys are allowed to play containing passes in defense. They wall up, all that crap. Well, it's going to take 9 passes to beat Virginia. You can do it, but you've got to take more drill play. Let's go. Put the ball right in there and pretty big. You guys are going to win. Eventually those shots are going to go down. And plus, because it's a very good shot, it's going to be a great offensive rebound. Multiplications right around and around. All right. That's so good. Don't worry about that. Nice job. Way to go. All right, go have a seat. Okay, and this is how I break it down now to go to individual development. Give me the 2 post guys, hustle out, 2 post guys. All right, let's go. Ball here. All right, go ahead. Seal up. Ball up. All right, put body on, ball up, but don't put some heat on it. But then you get it, ball up, don't foul. Not do so, but I think we probably do a 5. Why did they take the back out there and store up? All right, it's about I get it. I'm going to lose chicklets, like through here or whatever. Way a little bit. All right, your job is to deliver to the back as quickly as possible. Oh! That's all right. Okay, stop. Gentlemen, I would go through a sequence of moving them out and doing things like that on development. All right, we'll do the same thing. There are 2 key points. One is once you see something out of the 3-on-3, if you were going to go 3-on-3, then rep it out, write a little list of a note card of 2 things, and then break them down to 1-on-1 and make it as close to the game as possible. All right, the second thing that I would say is whatever you're working on, take a tiny little bite of the apple and let them feel good about themselves doing it. Third thing I wanted to mention is whenever you drill, give the advantage to the point that you're teaching. So I told the defense, hey, you're at a 5 street, you're at a 3 street, you're still there. But I want the player to feel good about himself, but not in a false way. He has to earn it. He gets bodied up, he gets slapped. But he scores, I guarantee that he's going to feel a little bit better about himself, that that's for real stuff, and it comes right out of your offense. And that is development. All right, that's all I said to see. Okay, 5 minutes just on individual development. Now, what I've done on individual development is there's some diagrams and there's some bullet points here for you. You don't even have to have this paper in your hand. All right, all you have to do is go to our blog, and it's on the blog, and it's MikeDunlap.com. So just write that in and bring it to our website. The the other thing is on the website, man, when I was fired at Charlotte, I went on a year's journey of watching what I thought were the best coaches in the world. And one of them was Thibodeau. And really, to get into his training camp is like getting into Fort Knox. It's really, really hard. And so my point of that is the information that you're getting out of that without permission, and I'm okay with it. I'll take whatever sort that coach would want to deliver towards me, because that's who I am. I give whatever I find back to the game, because it's really important to do that. But my point is this, is there's a drill called the smother drill on pick and roll that you're going to love. It's 5-on-5, it's competitive, and why I'm saying you'll love that is Thibodeau put this together, sure, with some help from Doc and some other people when he was an assistant in Boston. But it's a good drill for a mid-pick and roll, side pick and roll, step-ups, and dribble handoffs, and go bang, 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 and then you play live. If you can get your schemes in of how you want to defend mids, how you want to defend sides, how you want to defend those step-up picks. What's a step-up pick? It's anything that's a flat pick. They're stepping up like this, all right? Here, it's not a flat pick in the middle. Anything that's in a throw slot or sideline out is that pick right there is called a step. And then how do you want to handle dribble handoffs? There are two ways, basically, unless you're going to trap it or switch it. All right, well, that's calculus, but do you want to go under or over? Are you going to sit on top of the cutter? The Europeans do that. In European basketball, they don't shoot the gap, because if they do, the guy's going to make a three. Well, my point is that you can run this drill. It's on the blog. So you'll see it diagrammed out. You can type it out. It's been on there for the better part of the year. And what I did was I took stuff from Popovich, I took stuff from Thibodeau, I took stuff from Krzyzewski, a bunch of stuff that I've just been pouring it in to the blog. And you'll see there's just, it goes on and on, where I chunk information and get it out. Individual development, you don't really have to take notes. I just kind of cover those points there. All right, I've got time for a couple of questions. And if I can steal time from Coach Katz, I'm happy to do that. You'll be happy too. Questions on the whole deal was individual development. I hope all through the, I'll use those same methodologies in practice. So we'll play without the dribble. We'll go 5-on-5, for example, or 3-on-3, no dribble. And then we'll go and we'll play to 6 or 4. I'll see something and I'll go guard forward. And my assistants have picked up, or I'll say, hey, we got to do push-pull with our guards, and then swing it opposite and play it live. Yeah, and then I'll go, let's go guard forward for 5 minutes, and I'll see one thing, and I'll have the bigs working on 2-on-2, and I'll have the guards playing 3-on-3, and I'll do that out of my pocket. Here's an idea that Pete Newell Jr. gave me that really helped me with practices when I was at Cal Lutheran. I was a young coach. So Coach Newell, I would call him up every night, and I would say, this is what we did, I'm having trouble here. And then after about 2 weeks, Coach Newell said, when do you guys scrimmage? And I go, what do you mean? We have competition, we have time and score. I go, you're full. He said, do this. Tomorrow's practice, you're going to have 4 6-minute segments where you scrimmage. All right? And then after you get those 4, design your practice. So he said, and the scrimmages will tell you what your practice should be, because that's where they're at. I had never, ever heard of that, and I tried it, and we got better quickly because of that idea. And so, Coach, back to your question, I would do that right there, but I'm strong enough to say, hey, here's our practice plan, and then I'll take a hard right from the practice plan, because I see there's a fire and it's a problem, whether defense or offense, and I'll say, man, sometimes we delay those things that are so obvious to us because we become slave to our practice plan. I mean, you could do 2 6-minute segments after they warm up and then say, we're going to take 3 things that they were bad at on offense and 3 things they were bad at, or, you know, better said, they need to improve on, and then that's going to be the practice, and we'll throw it into a drill. Anybody can drill on anything.
So you mentioned that every individual development has to do with making good decisions. Does that mean you don't want your coach to be a robot down there?
Correct. And I want him to be able to catch the ball and be our point guard. Because if the big catches the ball and he's constantly turning the thing over, then we've got trouble. And that means that I don't want him to touch the ball. And we have certain guys on our team that will go, coaches, and we'll have a continuity offense. It could be a pick and roll continuity, and I'm watching their 2s and 3s catch an on-ball, and I'm saying, man, you're in trouble. That guy cannot operate off an on-ball. So in our program, we have a 2 that we slip the pick so he doesn't have that crowd around him. So we'll come in, slip that guy down, and now he has room to make his decision, and we modified our continuity according to what he can't do yet. And so, yes, to answer your question, that's how I would do it. I modify according to the talent we have. All right, gentlemen, we're going to let Coach Katz come on, but before I do, he's one of my closest friends in the entire world. I knew him when he coached at Susanville. I know him to be a minimalist. I know him to have taken one of the worst programs in America and then design his philosophy and change his philosophy according to what that program needed. And he has done his recruiting that way. He has carried a cross of suffering like no other in Division I, of being without. His administration, until he's won, which he's done in the last 2 years, would not help him. As they didn't help the previous coach. As they didn't help. Now they care about the program, so it's a testament. And I'm humbled that he's here today, along with the other speakers, because I know that he's that good. And I say that in my heart. I'm not trying to hedge my bets or tease or mess with him. I just, he is the reason why I coach today, and kids and coaches. I love you guys up here. I have a job to do for you guys. I would give you anything that I ever had from anybody because I love the game. But you say, how do you get your energy? You know, you're 35 years in, you keep doing these clinics, you keep running around doing this. I do it because the brotherhood of the coaches and the players. These players are awesome. They're fun to deal with. I love their eyes. I love the questions. I love the suffering. And what I'm saying is, back to Brian Katz, is he's one of the 5 reasons why I would coach next year. Give him a hand.